Feed Conversations.
Welcome to Fizz Feed Conversations, Hack Chronicles. So, you know this space was created for those stories that have been seemingly swept under the rug, but shouldn't be. So we're here to give them a little bit more attention. So we have another story, and this story is coming out of Michigan. So I need the Michigan delegation. Yeah, I need you to report to the front of the class, because do y'all know about this story? Again, with this article as well, I see no news coverage, no news articles reporting on this, only TikTok and Business Insider, because you know, for all of those who are on TikTok, you know TikTok is going to give you the real news. So today, we've got a crazy story, and this is a story about Sybil Garbeau, a 72-year-old nurse with more than 40 years of experience. So Sybil, who's this mild-mannered, dedicated nurse, worked at Touchstone Mental Health in Fridley near Minneapolis, was until last year. Everything seemed normal until things took a wild turn. So she's now facing 6 months in jail and 5 years of probation after being found guilty of felony assault. Crazy, right? Because she's 72 years old. So this 72-year-old nurse, who has never been in a physical fight with another nurse, is now facing this. Now, mind you, this article was written in August of 2023 on Business Insider. So here's the kicker. She also has to pay over $51,000 in restitution. And without a job, that's a tough bill that she's going to have to try to foot. She's due, or was due, to report to the Anoka County Workhouse, a minimum security correctional facility, where she would spend about half of her sentence on work release as an office clerk. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Here's the story. So Sybil feels she was treated differently because she's a Black woman in Anoka County, where the majority of the population is white. It's a tough situation and is sparking a lot of conversations about racial disparities in Minnesota. So Damon Drake, who heads up the We Resolve, which is a local advocacy nonprofit who is helping Sybil, he thinks there's definitely some truth to that. He says the system is stacked up against them and that it's hard to get a win in a system that's, well, a bit racist. So the whole thing started when tensions between Sybil and another nurse, Devlin Stitt, reached a boiling point. Sybil was just cleaning a desk with some spray when Devlin, thinking she was being sprayed on purpose, shoved Sybil. Things escalated and Sybil ended up hitting Devlin on the head with the can of spray. Now, Sybil says she was scared, especially with everything going on in the world, like the deaths of Dante Wright and George Floyd. She didn't want to be taken in by the police, so she went to the station herself. But get this, despite her years of service, the prosecution says she should have found another way out of the situation she was in. They argued that she used unreasonable force, even though she believed she was in danger. So there was a petition that was started on change.org, and I will have the link in the description box. Again, this article was written in August of 2023, so I'm really not sure if Miss Sybil has started her 6-month incarceration with work service, where she has to be somebody's secretary for free while she's incarcerated for defending herself. But right now it only has 1,764 signatures of the 2,500 that are needed. So this is why the petition matters, is what it says. And it was started by someone by the name of Shamel Seville of Media Inquiries. And it states, we started this petition for Ms. Sybil Garbeau, a 72-year-old Black woman nurse of 4 decades who is in jail in Anoka County, Minnesota, a town with a mere 10% Black population. Ms. Garbeau was convicted of second-degree assault against a white co-worker in an incident in which she described as self-defense. She was convicted by an all-white jury. Did y'all hear that again? Convicted by an all-white jury, as she was the only person of color in the entire courtroom. How is this just? How is this fair? Is this truly a jury of her peers? Ms. Garbeau alleges while on said date, she was at work as a nurse when she was spraying down a desk to clean, and the alleged victim accused her of spraying her with the disinfectant. She apologized and said it was a mistake when the alleged victim continued to yell at her and then hit her more than once. Do y'all hear that? The victim hit 72-year-old Miss Sybil Garbeau more than once. And that's when Miss Sybil Garbeau hit her with the can of disinfectant, causing lacerations to the alleged victim, which was probably just a few scratches. How could Miss Garbeau receive a fair trial with not one person of color on her jury? She wasn't even allowed to show her character video in court sentencing due to a computer glitch. We asked the Minnesota judge who presided on the matter to throw out the aforementioned conviction ASAP and release Miss Garbeau immediately. Even the sentence is super unjust. How does a 72-year-old first-time offender, senior citizen, model citizen, who in all of her 72 years never got in trouble with the law, how does she get sentenced to jail? I've seen first-time pedos get probation. WTF, people, our system must do better. At 72, Miss Garbeau definitely has health issues, and jail is no place to be. The streets of Minnesota are not safer because they locked up Sybil Garbeau. Please sign the petition and let's get someone's grandma home. Please and thank you. So here we have this elderly 72-year-old woman who's still working. At 72 years old, still working. And while she's at work cleaning her work area, you have a coworker who comes over and says that she thought Sybil was trying to spray her with disinfectant. I really wish she would have done it on purpose, because people like this are infections that need disinfectant. So the coworker by the name of Devlin takes a phone and hits her several times with it. Now, I don't know how old Devlin is, but she attacked a 72-year-old woman over spray by hitting her with the telephone. Sybil, having been attacked, hits her back with disinfectant spray to defend herself, and when the police arrived, Sybil was arrested, not Devlin, who physically assaulted her, a 72-year-old woman, not Devlin, who assaulted this woman with an object, so you had to reach for something to hit her with, so you intended to cause her harm. And she was told by prosecution that she should have found another option other than hitting her back. They forcing her to pay $51,000 in restitution. She had to go to jail for 6 months, portion of which she has to do in work release as an office clerk. Her trial didn't include a jury of none of her peers, as she was the only black person that was in this courtroom, and no one saw a problem with this. Let me help y'all understand something. Hit me at work, and I'm working that ass like my name is Mercedes, and you are a pole at the bank, because what? So Devlin faced no accountability in this situation. No charges, no nothing. Usually if there's an issue, and especially when there's a domestic assault that took place, they take both parties because she was assaulted first. But she's the one that has to pay, and she has to pay with a felony? A felony and a battery charge at 72 years old because I chose to defend myself? Oh, I'm about to give you a reason to give me all 6 months and more. Give me one more second, because I would have turned that entire place upside down. Because what do you mean? I would have wrung that heifer like wet clothes. Do y'all hear me? I would have made that heifer think twice about raising her hand to swat a fly when I got through with her, because how dare you? And again, I say, if she had sons or brothers or daughters or sisters and they would have gone to that job on assignment, it would have been a problem, because nobody defended this woman's honor. Not the job, not the system, not the police, nobody. They bullied this woman and the system let them do it. At what point are judges accountable for the cases that they know are wrong that come across their desk? At what point? At what point do they stand up and raise hell saying this is unjust and I will not be a part of it? Now, I don't have the connections to get people to look into this, but you can at least like and share the video so that we can get it into the algorithm so the people who need to see this, who can do something about it, can. Drop in the comments and let me know what you think about this one. If you want this to be a panel discussion, then drop some champagne glasses in the chat because we can definitely talk about it. We're about to listen to the audio of her interview with a channel named Nurses on Court. So get ready to listen to this. And I think this is about a 45-minute interview. I did speed it up a little bit, but here we go.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Nurses on Court. It's Nurse Jessica Seitz back here again on another Tuesday with Nurse Erica. And today we are beyond excited to have two very special guests with us today. We have Nurse Sybil Garbo with us, and alongside her is her adorable, supportive husband, Michael Garbo. Erica has become, pretty close with them, especially Michael in the last several months. Unfortunately, she hasn't been able to speak with Sybil. So I'm going to let Nurse Erica give you guys a little bit of background if you don't remember, or if you're like, I know that name. I'm going to let Erica dive into who Sybil Garbo is. Take it away, Erica.
Yeah, so you may have seen my videos or some other people's videos about this case, but Sybil has been a nurse for over 40 years, and back in 2021, she was working in a mental health facility where she, deep COVID, had to disinfect the surfaces like we all did, and had a can of disinfectant, was spraying a desk, and another coworker, a white coworker, claimed that Sybil was spraying her with it and not the desk. And from there was an altercation, which we'll get into some more of the details. And ultimately, Sybil turned herself into the police because there was a small head laceration, and it went to trial. And Sybil, unfortunately, back in July, I believe, was convicted of felony assault and sentenced to 6 months in a minimum security workhouse correctional facility, from which she was just recently released, but still is facing 5 years of probation and a large restitution fee that she must repay of over $51,000. Currently, her donor box is only at about $18,000. And once you hear the ins and outs of this case, I'm sure that you guys are going to be motivated and want to help Sybil put this behind her. We really need to get her to that $51,000 mark, so this is not hanging over their head. We will put the link in the show notes, but it is donorbox.org/Sybil, SYBIL -Garbo, GARBOW. And so with that, welcome to the podcast, Sybil and Michael. It's so good to finally see you.
Yes, it's good to see you too.
Yes, it's nice to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. Can you take us back to that day, Sybil, in 2021, and from your perspective, tell us what happened?
Yes. When I got to work, as usual, after washing our hands, we would have to start cleaning the desk between each shift. So Devlin worked the day shift, and so I was coming in. So that's what I did. I cleaned the chairs and the desk and come around. But this time, she really didn't move like she normally does. She said, "Are you crazy?" And she pushed me, on the chest. And I moved back and I picked up the receiver. I was going to call for help because I just felt like she was trying to provoke me. I felt like she was getting loud, and because she had a plan. And so when I picked the phone up to talk, she grabbed the receiver out of my hand, and when I reached to grab it back, that's when she hit me on my left hand, and it busted the skin open right at the base.
Wow.
And then I just hit her with that can because I had it in my right hand, but my intent, I guess, was to hit her back.
Right.
And so, and then I just put the can down because I was really upset then, and I picked up my briefcase and left out the room because her hair was bleeding, my hand was bleeding and hurting. And so I felt like it just had escalated to a point where I wasn't comfortable with being in there anymore. So I went out the room and I went up the hall and across the hall where my husband's office was open. And he wasn't in there. right there. I said, I'm gonna leave, and because I kept thinking about George Floyd and Dante Wright. I said, I'm not letting no police take me nowhere. So then I wanted to clean my hand off. So I went into the employee area to wash my hand, but I heard the sirens coming, and I just grabbed paper towels and dabbed it, and then I came out and I said, I'm leaving. So I went to my friend's house. We went in, and she put ice on my hand because it was swelling up, and I had pretty much stopped the bleeding because it was, wasn't down to the deep tissue.
Mm-hmm.
It was still superficial to the point where I could get the bleeding stopped. So then we decided to call the police, and the police asked the husband if they could come and pick me up. And so he said no. He said, we'll bring her there. And so then, because they said that they just wanted to talk to me about my side of the story. But when we got there, even before we got there, someone called me on the phone and said that my days was numbered.
Ooh.
And so
Yikes.
when we got to the police station, that policeman, he said, you know what you're being charged with. And so I said, no. He said, first degree assault with a dangerous weapon. I say, no.
Wait, and the dangerous
I said,
weapon was the can of disinfectant, right?
Right. In my mind, the dangerous weapon is like a knife or a gun,
Mm-hmm.
And I said, no. And so then I said, well, I want to talk to my lawyer and stuff. But he never really read me rights. He just told me what was going to happen. Because they put me in jail for 3 days then.
That must have been so frightening.
It was like, right. It was very frightening. They first, and they held me in the holding cell from 7, it was like 7 to 11 something at night. And I told them, I said, I have diabetes type 2, and I have hypertension and high cholesterol. I said, I need to take my medicine, and I need to eat. They held me all that time, and then when they took me up to that floor, they said, well, it's nothing open to eat now, so you'll just have to wait till tomorrow.
How did you know
go ahead.
Devlin, though? Like, I want to go back to that part. Like, obviously, I'm sure during shift change this is what I'm gathering, is that you've had encounters with her. What kind of encounters did you have? Was it in giving report? Was it, and why was she not happy with you? Why was she being so harsh towards you? Are you allowed to speak about that?
Because it was a number of things that led up to that. It was like Devlin, like she felt like she was in charge of all the nurses, when in essence we had a supervisor, a registered nurse supervisor. Devlin was a licensed practical nurse, just like me.
Okay.
But the thing is, it was a RN in that position, that day position, before she got put into that position, promoted to it. And she pretty much chased the RN away, I was told. I was not there working when they couldn't get along, but other employees, not just on that shift, but on the night shift, they told me that they didn't get along. And Devlin had a track record as far as with me and the residents.
Mm-hmm.
If she was upset with you, she retaliated, and that was against policy. But
that's bullying. That's
Yeah.
nurse bullying. Yeah.
Right.
So she had a reputation as a bully, and there had been rumors that she had run off 1 or 2 prior employees that also happened to allegedly be Black as well, correct?
Yeah. And the thing is that when she ran the nurse off before me, she went from making $25 an hour to $30 an hour salary position. and they hired me, and I was hired at $27 an hour because I have, some experience in nursing.
Just a little,
And
40
so-
years.
Yeah.
Right. And also I have a 4-year degree beyond the LPN. So when she found out that, I was more educated than her, I became a threat, I felt.
Okay.
And
That's your speculation,
right.
but there's a good reason to speculate that. And the other things that were leading into it was that Devlin focused on a lot of errors that Sybil was making, but she really wasn't making them. She would create those errors. You can describe more of it.
And Michael, you worked there. You knew Devlin, of course, and your wife. You worked there. You were employed there as a psychologist, correct?
That's correct, yes.
So
I
you
was
have
a clinical
intimate knowledge
supervisor.
of all of the dynamics there.
Yes. In fact, the tenseness in the relationship between Devlin and Sybil led Sybil to want to quit. And the program director wanted her to stay. The program director found Sybil's work to be very satisfactory, and Sybil got along well with all the staff and all the residents. The rest of the staff were kind of frightened of Devlin, and there was at least one who didn't want to even be trained by her because he knew what she was doing, switching up medications in the pill boxes, and didn't want to be set up to be written up for med errors by her, which she regularly did. She was writing everybody up
Except for
herself.
So
And
was this a
was the
long-term
big-
care? What kind of facility is this at?
This is a
health.
residential, what's called IRTS facility, Intensive Residential Treatment Service.
Okay.
It has 16 people who have diagnosed mental illness.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they stay there for about 90 days and then get released back into the community.
Okay.
So basically, there had been some prior kind of warning signs, correct me if I'm wrong, from Devlin that you had been concerned about, that you had kind of brought forward, maybe discussed with your husband before this incident. And that day, you felt like she had a plan, regardless of what you were doing, that she was going to create an incident, allegedly, is how you perceived it.
Yeah, and the surprisingly part of it, the program director and the nursing supervisor was supposed to have a meeting with her that day.
Oh,
And
that day. Interesting.
and so and the like some of the mistakes that she would make, and all the staff would have omissions sometimes, but she would write a list of everybody's name, but she never included her name. And if you called her on it and said, well, you got some omissions, then that's when she would retaliate. The next day you come in, she would act like you didn't set up the appeal, the med minders right, and she would just come up with a list of things, and you couldn't prove it because there was no cameras, so she could set you up anytime. And so that's why I told my husband, I said, I'd rather leave at one point because, my license is on the line.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
And so Sybil would tell me she wanted to leave and not return to work. And in retrospect, unfortunately, I convinced her to come to work that day. I said, you're scheduled to work. We need you. Don't leave the organization high and dry. Come to work and fulfill your shift obligation. And unfortunately, that was the day that this incident occurred.
How many patients, Sybil, did you have at a time, typically? Of the 16 patients, how many were you assigned?
It was one nurse to all of those patients.
So I guess what I'm trying to get at is so you and Devlin had to speak to each other every time you'd be on or she'd be coming off because you had to give each other a report, correct? Okay,
Right.
That's the picture I'm trying to paint here. So I can understand. I know nurse bullying. I've lived it. I've been there.
Me too.
And when somebody wants to find things wrong and point things out, they will find anything, any tiny, nitty gritty, minute detail to cause a ruckus. So I know that. I get that. And I'm sure anytime you tried to probably give a report, now if I'm wrong, you correct me, she would probably find something wrong in your report or something you had done wrong during your shift or that you didn't do enough of or that you didn't, you weren't fast enough or you didn't clean the patients enough. I'm guessing because I've lived it. So I'm trying to kind of paint a picture for everybody. So no matter what you would do, you knew if you were coming off your shift and you had to give report or, you know, or vice versa, it was not going to be a good encounter and it was uncomfortable. Am I right or am I wrong? And I don't know the specifics. I'm just asking.
You hit it the nail on the head.
And Devlin would try to portray Sybil as incompetent when everybody else saw her as very competent.
Right.
Yeah.
And when she went on her hunting trips with her husband, everything was very calm, and it was not all of this fault finding and.
It was a typical day. You would give report, get report, and it was what it was supposed to be.
And then
I would like to add something at this point.
Mm-hmm.
This wasn't admissible in court. I talked to the attorney about it, but I think it's very telling.
It is.
I've been there prior to Sybil's hiring, during Sybil's hiring, and following both their departure. My experience with Devlin on working there is that she made life and everyone's life very difficult. After she no longer worked there, I've still been there. Everybody gets along. There is nobody written up, and the nurses are very content without someone
so it went from
like
toxic
Devlin.
to a healthy work environment, it sounds like.
That's correct.
So they would not let you describe that, Sybil, in court? That was not allowed to be discussed, like the events leading up, or?
No.
Not that those, yeah, right. And they didn't want those events leading up to it described to the jury. The prosecuting attorney specifically limited any testimony to just what happened that day in the nursing office.
And so when it did finally go to court.
What about your hand? Like, what about your hand? Nobody cared about your hand?
The male prosecutor said you could have did that to yourself. And when they were picking the jury members, they got down to people that didn't know anything about nursing.
I'm sorry, for people that don't know the story very well. So this eventually went to trial. It was an all-white jury. There was no African Americans on there. And you yourself, for those that may not be watching but only listening to the podcast, you are African American. And the prosecution alleged that you should not have defended yourself, that you should have just walked away when this happened. And you asserted that this was self-defense, that you did not strike her with the can until after she had already physically assaulted you twice. It was self-defense and you were trying to get away, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And they told me after then that there's no such thing as self-defense in Anoka County.
What?
What they told me.
What?
What kind of county is that, Sybil? That sounds a little interesting.
They need to investigate that county. It's different.
And why, if you could have inflicted your own hand wound, why could she not have inflicted her own head wound?
Right.
Thank you.
I'm just saying.
Sybil takes responsibility. She did inflict her own head wound. Sybil acknowledged that she struck her. You're
being honest, yeah.
Yes, she's not denying that she struck her. She's only saying she struck her after Sybil was shoved and was assaulted by Devlin. Was
there any report of a concussion or any brain swelling or anything like that at the emergency room?
No, and they kept saying that the emergency people, including the physician, was like close to incompetent.
Of course they were. Of course they were. Mm-hmm.
And we all know as nurses that you have to be very intelligent to be a physician in the ER.
Absolutely.
So, you have to be able to intervene in crisis like that, in emergency like that. But they downplayed their capabilities. It was just.
How did you feel that went?
They wanted to paint me as a aggressive, ignorant street black.
Not fair. Not fair at all.
I'm sorry.
And they kept saying, and they still say that, including the probation officer, the victim. The probation officer actually said, we're tracking that restitution money, and that is not for you. That is not for you to, if you're going to get an appeal or anything, that's for the victim.
Referring to the donor box donations, right? Which you only have set up to pay off the restitution in the first place. The insinuation is kind of a threat that they said they were watching you, right, Sybil, and what you were going to do with the donor box. And all you want to do is raise enough to pay it all off so you can move on with your life, right?
Right.
And it's currently just over 30,000 short of what I think I looked before we started, it was at 18,162, and you owe 51,350. And you know, guys, every little bit helps. $1, $5, $20, anything that you can do. These things really do add up, as we have seen before, like in the Redon DeVot case.
To help you. I will do whatever I have to do to help you get that money. I will post it on every one of my pages because, especially after talking to you today, I know in my heart that you've been wrongly accused, wrongly convicted, and this is absolutely ridiculous. Do we want to talk about some of the pictures, Erica?
Yeah.
Today,
so there were some body cam footage and some other video footage and still pictures, I think, that were taken from video footage that were presented at the trial. And Jessica had a chance to review those pictures prior to the podcast. And so I haven't seen them yet. And so Jessica, as a registered nurse, looking at those, do you think that they are depicting what the prosecution alleged? That there was like a huge six-inch laceration, puncture wounds, and all that.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I didn't even know what the prosecution alleged, okay, prior to today specifically, because Erica, I only know what I know about Sybil's case from what you have posted, to be honest. I've seen a couple news articles, but I went into this kind of blindly, which I think I'm more of the perfect subject to look at the photos versus somebody that may slightly be jaded by having almost too much information. So I don't know exactly what the prosecution said. I looked at the photos today, and looking at it as a nurse, somebody with, medical experience of, oh gosh, I don't even want to admit how long time. I looked at the photos, and initially what I saw was one laceration, small laceration on the top of her head, okay? I saw a lot of dried blood all over her face. I saw a picture of her face cleaned up. I don't see any puncture holes or scrapes or scratches. I saw one picture that looks very graphic, which is a lot of blood surrounding her on a desk. But I know as a nurse that head lacerations bleed like a mother. You know what? They do. It's a very vascular area. And if you're a mom, you've had kids, if you've hit yourself, you've fallen, slipped, cut yourself in the back of the head, it looks 1,000 times worse than what it really is. So what I saw was, I saw a small laceration on the top of her head, but it looks like they sutured closed. A bunch of dried blood on her face. The face that was then cleaned off saw no marks. I did see one eye that looked bruised, but the photo that I visualized, it looks like an old bruise in my opinion, not a fresh bruise. It's very yellow. So in my opinion, the only thing I saw was what Sybil described, was that yes, she hit her with the can in self-defense, and it happened to hit her in the scalp, and it caused a lot of bleeding that looks very dramatic. I hope I described that well, but that's pretty much all I could see from those pictures.
Did you see, did you look at her eyes?
Yes, I did. Thank you for mentioning that. Her eyes, and this was another thing, I guess she claimed that the disinfectant was sprayed like in her eyeballs, like that was
a
the
chemical burn.
Her eyes looked, her eyes, the sclera I'm talking about looked as white can be, probably whiter whiter than mine. They looked clear. I didn't see any redness. I didn't see any irritation. I didn't see any redness around the eyes in those photos. And I viewed, I think, 7 of them. I did not see it. Did not see any redness. All I saw was an old bruise around one eye that looked yellow.
After Sybil hit her, she claims that after she was struck 7 times in the head, allegedly struck 7 times in the head, and was sprayed in the eyes, she then says to Sybil, that was inappropriate.
Yeah.
That's a very
it's very calm and
cohesive
collected
statement to make. If you've been whacked to the point that you're not going to be able to walk anymore, or
Right.
To be able to say something like, now, Sybil, if you struck her 7 times, you didn't do a very good job of breaking, like, what happened to the other 6 whacks? You must have missed. That doesn't make any sense.
Right. On the emergency department, it said that her head was soft spots in it. But if you look close to her head, if she would have been hit any more, it would have been reddened. It would have been swollen. If she has soft spots, it was probably from birth. No,
Soft spot.
and so I want to point out a couple of things. Sybil, would you mind, if you're comfortable, sharing your age for the audience?
I'm 72 now. When this altercation happened, I was 70, and she was 57. She's 59 now. One other thing I'd like to point out, she used to dye her hair at that time when this happened. And so that's why when you look at the picture, her hair is dark. But when she came to court, she was grayer than I am.
Oh,
and
how convenient.
And she had added hair because her hair was thin when I remembered her. And all of a sudden she has this add-on extensions. And I knew it was extensions because I grew up my mother was a hair stylist. So, and I've been in performing arts in the past. So, and we had to wear different wigs or different add-on pieces and stuff. So I know my hair, and I know when someone else has, So, and her husband also, his hair wasn't that great. They both came looking like old timers.
Makes you wonder if that was
They wanted to make themselves look. She wanted to look probably more frail, and like that you could have taken her down, right?
Yeah. So,
it's absolutely
Sybil,
ridiculous.
is it your opinion that there was some racism involved in your trial? Do you think that came into play? Because a lot of people, not knowing you but hearing the story, think that that's pretty apparent.
Opinion, it could be, it could have been, because the way they did the elimination of the jurors, because when the pool of people first came in, it was one African American female, and it was a Somalian man. He looked like he was in his early 20s, and it was a Hmong lady. She said she was 21, and everybody else out of those 28 people was white. And so they kept going around, and the prosecutor said that they didn't even let the black African American. She was not picked, period. She had a PhD. And then the guy, they said that he looked like he was on drugs and that he couldn't stay away. The man wouldn't look up and stuff. This was a man from Somalia, and in other countries, sometimes, in other cultures, they feel like to look you dead in the eyes is a form of disrespect and stuff.
Yeah.
But,
True.
So, in my opinion, that he, that's what it was. The man wasn't sleepy. And then the Hmong lady, they just went round and round, and they eliminated her, and we got down to 12 people, and they had a nurse before they got down to the 12 people. They got rid of the nurse too.
Of course they did.
Always do that. Oh, it's infuriating.
Of course they did.
Infuriating.
I'd like to add that I don't know if it was all racist, but there was an all-white jury.
Mm-hmm.
The judge was Caucasian. The bailiffs were Caucasian. The stenographer was Caucasian. And the two prosecuting attorneys were Caucasian. There wasn't one African American except for Sybil in that courtroom.
And Michael, what are you for people that can't see right now? Are you African American?
No, I was Caucasian in there, but I wasn't allowed to be in there because I was a witness.
What I'm getting at is that if you're another, you're a non-African American person, right, that is just pointing out the obvious of what was there.
Yes, I would like to mention, I don't know what significance this was, but to me, there is some significance in what I'm going to describe. When we were assigned a courtroom, for all the days that Sybil had her court case, they assign a courtroom, so you look up on the digital board and you know what courtroom to go to. Sybil's case was never on the assignment board, so no one could ever know where the courtroom was.
Oh, interesting.
That just seems strange that they would do that. I don't even know what significance to put to it, but I think it was a significant observation.
I was just curious, like, do you still have your license, or?
License is inactive, but at the sentencing, the judge, his intent, and he made it very clear, was to take my license. But I let my license expire before then. Okay. So he couldn't have that choice.
Okay.
Because this court process started in May of 2021. So my license was due to be renewed in, I think it was February of 2023. So we were going to court, we were doing hearings and Zoom and everything. So, I didn't want to pay for something. I knew he was, I felt that I knew he was going to, and that was his intent. But, and if I went and got it reinstated now, I think I fear that he would take it. So,
so even though you're out of jail now, you're not able to work as a nurse. You're employed doing something outside of nursing, correct?
Right. I work in this office where we're at.
That's such a shame. It's like a double punishment,
Right.
And what about?
Well, like Sybil, you were right though. I would say you were right in the fact of letting your license lapse, because that at least that gave you a little bit more of control. You made the choice. You made the choice instead of letting them take something else away from you. And I completely understand that. I get it. I really do.
Yeah.
Right.
What about an appeal? Can you tell us if that's in the works at all?
Well, I would like to have an appeal because, I feel like even at the age of 72, if I choose to still take care of people, which ever since I was a small child, I've always been a caregiver.
Oh.
And so, I feel like I'm more than capable of being a nurse. I did primary nursing. I did, been part of the team nursing. I've worked in group homes. I started out in the hospital on the med-surg floor at St. John's, where I was trained mostly in that hospital even before that. I took a lot of my clinicals there. And I've been in long-term care. I've worked as a charge nurse on the lock unit for people that, had mental health disorders. I've worked in dual diagnosis settings, and I worked when I was a single mom, a single parent, and was going to college. I worked for pools, so that I wouldn't work full time, but I could work doing that and going to college. So, I know that I'm a good nurse. So, it just, the cost of an appeal, I consulted with some attorneys and stuff, and they're saying, well, we can't guarantee this and we can't guarantee that. And my husband and I, we don't have a lot of money, so we're both, getting older and stuff, and we have other long-term and short-term expenses. It's a situation that I pray about that can be turned around, but we'll see.
Is there going to be a civil suit against you? I already know the answer to this, but do you want to answer it for people that are curious if the Devlin, if she's planning on suing you civilly?
Well, she already tried. We had to retain an attorney as well, and because of the time factor and that lapse, and plus he kind of shot down every claim. She couldn't follow through with that, so she ran back to the criminal court, and that judge, in my opinion, felt sorry for her and came up with this. Asked my husband in court in front of some people that he didn't even know how much he made, and so he's, being honest, he told him, and that's what they're basing all this restitution money on.
Oh gosh!
And he didn't even have a dog in the fight.
Sybil, how did it feel when you heard that day, when you heard the sentencing, that you heard that you were found guilty, that you were going to serve time? How did that feel? Did you feel like that is what the answer was going to be? Did you feel, what were your thoughts that day?
Well, I felt it was unfair, but I'll tell you what I really thought too. Beyond that, I said, well, it's kind of good. It's to end today. It happened in these times. I said, because if it would have happened back past the 60s or something, they probably would have took me out in the square and hung me.
Sad. It's sad to think that. It's sad to think, honestly, that racism still exists, and it sounds like it.
Sybil,
sounds like it does.
You've had a lot of people saying things about you in the press, in the media, that you haven't really had any control over, and I know that can be really hard to read things about you that are not necessarily true. Is there something that you would like the public to know, or that you would like to maybe clarify or clear up?
If she wouldn't have pushed me and hurt my hand, I wouldn't have reacted. And I remember clearly that the judge says, well, you have no remorse. And so my defense attorney, he says, say something. And so I said, well, I'm sorry I hit her back. But, why, many people wouldn't have had no remorse when they accused of something that didn't happen that way. And
I was going to say, I'll say it for you, Sybil, if you don't want to say it. Why would you have remorse when you're doing nothing but self-defense? Why would you be remorseful when somebody attacked you first and all you're doing is, after being struck twice, you're fighting back and getting yourself out of that situation? I wouldn't be remorseful at all. I know that it's hard for you to probably say it because of everything you're going through, but I will say it for you. And I would have done exactly what you did in that situation. And you know what, Sybil? You did nothing wrong. And just like nurses across the country that even defend themselves against patients, they too are being seen as if they've done wrong. And the patient will whack them and punch them or hit them in the head, but God forbid the nurse fight back and try to protect themselves, and they're seen as wrong. And these are times that are messed up in nursing. They are crazy, and things need to be fixed and need to be done right. And it's you don't feel bad for saying it, sweetie. Don't.
Right. And I just felt like if I would have said what was really on my mind, he would have had me marched right off to jail. And they had the nerve enough to say, oh, well, if she wants to have another trial or anything, she's perfectly welcome to. If I would have said I wanted another trial, they would have threw me in. I feel like this. They would have threw me in jail, and I probably spent months there before it even, and I didn't want to have another trial in Anoka County for nothing.
I don't blame you at all.
You were just trying to survive. You were trying to,
Well, Sybil and Michael, we thank you so much for coming on the podcast, for trusting us to tell your story. It's been a pleasure getting to know both of you. I know the nursing community is behind you and supports you, all 5 million of us, minus Devlin.
And I just want to say that Sybil's complexion is beautiful.
It is. Oh my gosh, it is.
Her 72. If I look like that at 72, I will be the happiest woman in the entire world. You are absolutely beautiful. And I can see why Michael loves you and why he scooped you up and married you.
Thank you.
And I'm asking for everyone that's listening, for the nurses, for anyone that's listening, if you can, please donate. Anything at all helps.
Yes.
$1, $5, anything that you can do. We'll put the link in the show notes, but it is donorbox.org/Sybil-Garbo. Please donate. Let's get Sybil to the 51,000.
I'm going to donate $500.
Thank you.
And that donation is on behalf of Nurses Uncorked. I just want to say that I'm putting that donation out there on behalf of Nurse Erica and myself. And it's what needs to be done, and I hope that other people will follow in our footsteps and at least try, because you deserve something fair, and you deserve your name to be cleared the right way. So I'm glad you're home. Until next time on the next Nurses Uncorked.
Well, that's all I have for this one. Make sure you hit that like and share button so this story can get out to those who need to see it in order to see what we can do for Miss Sybil Garbo. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you're not sure about joining the Champagne Gang, it's all right. We'll leave the light on for you. Come by anytime. Thank you for joining Fizz Feed Conversations, the Hat Chronicles. Until next time, see you soon.